Joe Biden,
friend of the show.
Joe Biden, and he continued. He's had a great week.
Oh yeah, he's not been sundowning for 78 straight hours
ever since the debate. He's been on fire. cannot be stopped. He's had a string of, I don't know, I'll be nice and call them gaffes.
Yeah.
Among them, confusing the Parkland and Sandy Hook mass shootings.
Sure.
Saying I was vice president during the Parkland massacre, which was, he'd been out of office for 2 years. At that point. He said, what was the thing where he was like, black kids just have as many skills.
Poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Oh, yeah. Poor kids are just as smart as white kids. He said in the midst of one of his speeches, we choose truth over facts. Truth over facts. But he did have a good moment here at the Iowa State Fair that I want to talk about. Some Turning Point USA, some Charlie Kirk
weasel.
Yeah, some weasel from Turning Point USA. This woman, got him in the sort of, not the press scrum, but like they walk around and eat the pork chop and the corn dog, and everyone follows him around. And in the midst of that, one of Charlie Kirk's little rats, how many gender? He asked Joe Biden. She asked Joe Biden how many genders there are, and Biden responded, "At least 3."
That's so amazing.
And then
the fact that he just decided to go for it.
He goes, "There are at least 3." The woman then asked him to name them, and then he said, "Don't play games with me, kid." Adding that he was the first one in the Obama administration to come out in support of marriage equality. And then apparently he grabbed her arm, and all the Daily Caller weirdos are having a field day with that.
It's so amazing because she catches him, and he knows in his head, oh, I'm fucked. I have no idea. All I know is I have a dim knowledge that it's definitely not 2. I know it's not 2. That's all I know. So I know 2 is not right. And then it's just like, am I going to ignore it? No, I'm just going to fucking heave the pigskin down the field, go for the fucking end zone. And it just goes, at least 3.
There are at least 3. However, for anyone else who doesn't want to get tripped up over this question, Joe Biden not prepared to answer that question. If you're not prepared for his question like that from a little rat like that, what you say is, get out of here, kid. You bother me. Yeah. You do a little W.C. Fields things. However, if you want to give the correct and right answer to that question, how many genders are there? You say none, 0.
Yep. 0 or infinite. Those are both acceptable answers. But the clever dodge answer is to say 1, the human gender.
I think 0 is the best answer to that question.
Yeah, there is 0 genders.
There are 0 genders.
The gender's not real.
As many as you want them to be.
Yeah. Good luck, Joe.
Well, this was the week when the press corps finally had to say, we think he's too senile.
Yeah.
And that's what all the articles are now like, seems like Joe has a real gaffe problem, which you could have which everyone knew was the fucking case.
I mean, he had the gaffe problem back in 1988.
Yeah, when he was a spry 300 years old.
This is Joe being Joe. But, now, I mean, look, like someone edited together like a mega cut of his brain just short circuiting on camera. But it's all of recent vintage.
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't like when he came out, when Barack Obama nominated him as his vice president. And he said, "Isn't this guy great? Barack America." Play the clip of the Joe Biden mega meltdown montage.
Rich Fitzgerald, the county executive, Allegheny County executive, being here, and we don't always live up to, but that's who we are. Go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. We can speak out and be more straightforward. Senator, think of, it's not about, I know you're supporting by saying booing, but look, here's the deal. Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future. Don't have here in Miami, in Florida. You don't have it here. And that is, if you keep an audience, all these breakthroughs we have with dealing with the whole, help people who have or in fact are and likely to get Alzheimer's by Wall Street bankers, CEOs, and hedge fund managers. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Right. I found that the secretary, we sat together in many meetings. My wife is a full-time teacher, taught all during when we were vice president. But President Trump and the demagogues around the world, how can a person dignity be maintained
and she never yields. She does not break. She stands up.
The bills that the future president here, that the senator's talking about, we choose truth over facts. I keep my recommendation in private. Unlike you, I expect you would go ahead and say whatever was said privately with him. That's why I'll end the gag rule, the global gag rule that prevents money from getting to NGOs. $100 billion worth of loopholes in the law. Why they do that? I looked at it anyway. That's what I think my plan. I know what my plan does. By strengthening.
Okay, so
the life.
but Virgil, to your point that like the media, after his performance at the debate, where again right after that I said they were like strong, energetic, Biden's on top of the ball.
I kind of think. I'm not saying that this matters, but I kind of think that the worm is turning, and now this is the point where the media's like, okay, we're bored with him being the front runner. And I think this just precipitates a spate of negative press that he will not know how to deal with because he's totally inflexible and incapable of analyzing or reacting to new circumstances. So he's just going to stay the course. It'll just get worse and worse, more embarrassing.
No, but I think that the worm is turning slightly where like the media now either, is proactively asking the question like, do you think maybe he's, fit and, mentally fit enough, or, think maybe he's too old or not really. I think there's something going on there. But similar to the Epstein thing where like there was like seen a couple pretty big high profile articles like Opinion and then one thing in CNN.com that was basically presented as a news article. I'm going to read that because it's insane. But just essentially saying this is a Washington Post opinion section by Paul Waldman. Lay off Joe Biden's gaffes. And I'm just like, what's the idea here? That like I think Weigel pointed this out where he was just like, is the idea here, well, if Democrats are nice to Joe Biden in the primary, that means that Republicans also have to be nice to him in the general.
Yeah,
there's like
Republicans will only remember that they don't like a Democrat if Democrats remind them.
So let's see what he says here. Regular Plumline readers will know that I'm hardly Joe Biden's biggest fan.
Is it Greg Sargent?
I think that's the Plumline thing, yeah. She goes, I'm hardly Joe Biden's biggest fan, but reporters' coverage of his gaffes is getting out of control. It's both unfair to him and a disservice to the American voters who are trying to figure out who their next president should be. And when the president of the United States is the most prolific liar in American political history, he just passed, and then in parentheses, he just passed 12,000 false or misleading claims. And
that's a lot of Pinocchios.
And is waging a re-election campaign based on racism and fear. The idea that gaffes are an important campaign issue is particularly offensive.
There's 25 candidates. That's what I don't get. I saw yesterday somebody was making a joke about Biden's brain not working, and a woman responded and said, look, okay, we don't have time to be nitpicking about somebody's brain farts. We got Trump in the White House, and we need to beat him. And I'm like, there are 25 other candidates, and half of them have the exact same profile as Biden. They have the same issue positions. They're white men. They are straight. They have everything you think you need to beat Trump. They also don't have advanced dementia. Why are you so fixated on this motherfucker?
And like it's like from progressives, like Plumline. That's like the progressive Washington Post blog, right?
Plumline, I think, is ostensibly neutral election stuff.
But yeah, like the progressives or Democrats or whatever, this idea that like when there's a threat like Donald Trump and he's running a campaign based on like racism and fear, fine, that's all true. But like it's the primary right now,
yes!
So that like the point is like we all know the goal is to beat Donald Trump. But like you can't say in the middle of a Democratic primary, like everybody just let's ignore like the huge glaring flaw with the leading candidate. No, like this is where you're supposed to fucking vet the candidates and make sure that you nominate the one with the most support, the one that makes the most fucking sense. Like this thing, if you want to beat Donald Trump, the way to do it is not to just be like, let's pretend Joe Biden's brain is fine. Everybody ignore what's right in front of your fucking face.
Because the people you're going to be trying to get to vote for you in the general are not as weirdly invested in this as you are. So they're not going to have the brain screen to be like, no, he's fine. They're going to go, look at him.
You realize what the core matter is Biden's pitch implicitly is, I'm the most electable one. I'm the one who does best in the hypothetical trial poll heats against Donald Trump. But the reality of the matter is Joe Biden has terrible political instincts. Yes. His last 2 presidential campaigns were huge fucking disasters. He won one tough race for the United States Senate, and I guess for some local position before that in Delaware in the 1970s, and since then has just coasted every single fucking time.
Yeah, in a machine state where they just trade off power by predetermined lot, and they don't actually compete with one another.
He's not had to win a competitive race or not been capable of winning one since the fucking 70s.
And he ran for president twice before, once in 1988, once in 2008, and they were both glorious failures, which saw him scrape around 1 or 2%. And in the case of 1988, involved an incredibly embarrassing plagiarism scandal where it was revealed that he just took an entire speech that was about his biography from the fucking British Labour leader, Neil Kinnock.
So he won, of course, 2 elections for the vice presidency, drafting off Obama. That's it. People were voting for Obama. You were the other guy there.
And he's still doing that. He's still fucking drafting on Obama. That's why he's leading all the fucking polls.
If he gets the nomination, it will be Obama's fault, the same way Hillary was. So he is responsible for both of them getting the nomination and then losing by giving them his imprimatur as the popular guy. First, he cleared the lane for Hillary, and then after she ate shit and she can't run again, he's going to do the next best thing, which is draft off of people's residual affection for Obama.
Well, it's a good thing he won't get the nomination then.
I mean, it kind of fits, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's October, and we're watching those 2 sundowning old men jabber with one another. It kind of is what, I don't know. It seems like it's what we're headed towards.
All right, let's see here. All right, I want to read this article because this was actually shocking to me. This is at CNN.com in the politics section. I don't know if it's labeled as opinion or not. Let me just double check. I don't think it is. I think this is just presented as a news article in the politics section of CNN.com. It's by someone named Maeve Reston. I guess is a reporter for CNN. And the headline is, Joe Biden hears your taunts about his age, but he's busy running for president. This article is as close to just a straight press release from a political campaign published as journalism as I've ever seen. It is really quite stunning. So this is Maeve Reston in CNN writing about Joe Biden. Boone, Iowa. As Joe Biden worked his way down the rope line at the Boone County Fairgrounds Friday, his campaign was dealing with what has become a routine problem. The Trump campaign had seized on Biden's mix-up of 2 words during the previous night's speech, and that fit neatly into Trump's narrative that the 76-year-old former vice president isn't equipped for the mental rigors of the presidency because he's, quote, not playing with a full deck. And of course, Biden's get back to that is Trump's playing with a deck, but it's all jokers.
That would be an incredibly powerful deck because jokers are wild.
That's true.
It could be any card. It's like every hand's a royal flush there.
Biden knew the questions were coming, but here in Boone, he was in the zone. Relaxed and seemingly untroubled as he offered well-wishers his skilled hand as they squinted in the bright sun, trying to position their iPhones for selfies with Uncle Joe. It's an ease that comes of years of experience with both crowds and scrutiny, and one that he intends to use as he continues to make his case for the White House. He's just a regular guy, just like us, wants the best for our country and our people, and that's what we all want, said Sheldy Grabow, who described herself as a 28-year-old stay-at-home mom who works with special needs students during the year. She and her friends were much more interested in Biden's message about rebuilding the middle class, which he describes as his North Star, than his gaffes. So I guess, Maeve found, a hardworking single mother who thinks Joe Biden is just like her.
Just
and
like her.
I'm more interested in the policies.
My son also smokes crack.
He's more interested in his policies than the gaffes. And it says Biden locked eyes with Gary Craven, who told the former vice president that he'd recently lost his 48-year-old son, Todd, after a struggle with alcohol withdrawal. The Veterans Administration failed him, Craven, a Boone resident, said in recounting of their conversation to CNN. He added that his daughter recently retired from the Air Force after stints in Iraq, Afghanistan, Jordan, Korea, and Somalia with a medical discharge due to post-traumatic stress disorder. She saw too much, Craven said. Biden leaned in close, gripping Craven's shoulders. Can I get your number and call you? The former vice president asked him. An aide dutifully took down Craven's number and said Biden would call him from the car. A little ways down the rope line, a reporter shouted a question about Thursday night's word mix-up, in which Biden misspoke by saying poor kids are just as bright and talented as white kids before immediately correcting himself. President Donald Trump's daughter-in-law used the mix-up to question his mental acuity, the reporter noted. Tell them it's the second anniversary of Charlottesville coming up, so they need to divert to something, Biden replied, referring to the fatal street violence that occurred in 2017's Unite the Right rally in Virginia. Biden often rebukes the president's handling of the incident, Trump's perceived encouragement of white supremacists, with his response that there were very fine people on both sides while campaigning. The reporter persisted. Are you able, do you think, to go through the whole campaign with this kind of scrutiny on you? Yes, I have to. It's legitimate scrutiny, Biden replied. He turned back to the Iowa woman who was trying to take a picture with him. Fire away. Mr. Biden, they say these gas ding your electability, another reporter interjected. Well, that's going to be determined pretty soon, isn't it? Biden parried back. He kept moving down the line, handing a $20 bill to a little girl named Macy Grabeau for ice cream, telling her he owed her big for being so good as she listened to his entire speech under the hot sun. Giving $20 to a little girl to get one ice cream, kind of sus.
Yeah, what's she doing with that cash?
Again, I wish Felix was here because I feel like he could vibe off the story of Biden telling a girl, here you are, honey. I owe you big for sitting there.
All in one place.
Craven, the father Biden promised to call, dismissed the attention to the former vice president's so-called gaffes. He's a human being like the rest of us, instead of just a Democrat, Craven said, when he asked why he isn't seriously considering any of the other Democratic candidates. I've read his book. I've listened to him speak going back as far as the Obama campaign. I worked 40 years as an electric utility lineman, a foreman, and I understand that experience counts. And some of these people, I don't believe, have reached the level of experience to where they can handle the job that Trump is going to leave us. He continued, I don't think it was possible for one man to destroy the fabric of the country. I'm just a fat, old, retired guy from the Midwest, but I just throw my hands up with Trump. I think that Joe, from what I've seen and read, is probably the finest man who has ever served in our government. From what I've read, Joe Biden is the finest man who has ever served in our government.
I mean, it's not so much a question of, oh, don't you know about the crime bill and don't you know about X, Y, Z? I mean, A, he probably doesn't, and B, he might even have agreed with those things. He's probably relatively conservative for a Democrat. But what is the positive case that he's that good of a guy? What is he clinging to in making that assessment? Where is the evidence? I don't get it. He's just a dude. He was just a senator. And he was the vice president. He didn't do anything. I don't get it. He didn't foster a peace treaty or something. He didn't have a hunger strike. I don't get it. What is going on? Why do people like this?
There's like a subhead, like there's a new section to this article that's just titled "Voters Connect with Biden," and it goes on. The next sub category or new subject line in the article is Biden on the trail, and it goes. It's not clear yet how effective Trump will be in softening Biden's support with his attempts to describe him as Sleepy Joe or lacking a full deck. Biden's campaign is clearly taking care to address what could become a dangerous liability for his campaign. When he spoke outdoors at the Boone Fairground on Friday, for example, he used a teleprompter and frequently referred to notes he made through his way through the speech, perhaps cognizant that another mistake would be unhelpful as his rivals attempt to build the narrative that he's too old for the job. And still, mistakes were made over the weekend. At a gun control forum on Saturday, he said twice that he met with students who survived the shooting in Parkland, Florida. The incident happened in February 2008, more than a year after he left office. But in comparison to a 73-year-old president who eschews exercise and seems to prefer riding around in a golf cart to walking, Biden walks at a clip that sometimes makes it difficult for the throng of reporters and cameras to keep up with.
He's got so much coil potency you wouldn't believe it.
So I'm just going to skip to the end here. It says, when he arrived at the fair 20 minutes early and his staff was trying to move him toward the soapbox, the former vice president glanced at his watch and looked perplexed. We're going to stand there at the soapbox for 20 minutes, he asked his aides. He made an executive decision. There was time for ice cream. Natch. That's how that article ends. There's time for ice cream, Joe.
Joe, we're going to have ice cream now.
He's like, oh boy, is it Monday night?
Yeah. We put the pills in it.
So, I mean, again, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, like, again, super easy to do, super easy bit. Can you imagine CNN, Politico, New York Times, Washington Post writing an article about Bernie Sanders in the same way that sounded?
Yeah, obviously not.
No, God, no.
Never. If Bernie had 1/4 of the goof-em-ups that Biden has had, there would be stories everywhere about, is he okay?
Yeah, like if Bernie had spent the last weeks having as many misstatements,
Yep.
or gaffes, whatever, verbal
Brain
tics or
farts.
whatever, brain farts. Do you think that like the press takeaway coverage of all of that would be, it doesn't matter?
Yeah. He's just connecting
Let's all
to
get a
the
big
connecting
bowl of
with vote-
strawberry
yeah.
ice cream.
Yeah. No, or like, the idea
It's
is
time for ice cream, Bernie.
Yeah, the idea is those gaffes only matter to media, political people. He's connecting with real folks. They're more interested in hearing about his universal health care plan than, whether he can string a sentence together. Pressing play now.
About the Home Depot story. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm in Home Depot, and I hear, honey, this is the guy I was talking about. This guy I was talking about. And the story that he was recounting was this, okay? A black head houseman of Red Dawn had just verbally accosted some newbies, and you know what? It was kind of over and above and out of line, but you know what? He could get away with it. And then he turned around and did the same thing to a group of guys, and I was included. And I said, are you talking to me like that? And he said, who the fuck do you think I'm talking to like that? And I walked up and I said, well then check this out, bitch. Say it one more fucking time. And know this, I bet you before it fucking escapes your lips that you're knocked out fucking cold on the floor, okay? And so what's going to be? Fucking step. And he didn't do shit. And I said, that's what I thought. And I walked to my bunk. And I started to read. And he came up and he said, roll your shit up. Like, go to the fishbowl, you're in trouble. And I said, fuck you, man. I'm not doing that. He said, roll it up or I'll go up there for you. And I said, go do that, okay? And while you're out there, keep this in mind, man. When you get out, I'm going to find you in whatever cardboard box you're in, and I'm going to kill you, okay? And you know what? When he was gone, all the brothers that had heard me say that didn't like that. They started talking a hell of shit, I mean, loud about what they're going to do and what they could do. And I'd had enough of it, man. And so I pulled a cool hand motherfucking Luke, bitches, okay? When you do this, I stood up and I walked out to the center of the fucking floor. And I slowly pulled my shirt up until it was near my eyes, and boom, it was past. And then I slowly took it down, and I knew what was going on. And I said this. I said, if any motherfucker in this building has a problem with me, okay, then step the fuck up. And I waited. And no one did. And I said, either step the fuck up or I'm going to go back to my bunk and start reading, and you better shut the fuck up, okay? Or maybe I said it smoother, the other one. Anyway, yeah, it was a big deal, man, because Babe Rob came back to my bunk and he said, you know what, you stay in your bunk and I'll stay in mine. And it's like, okay, I'll stay in my sandbox. Bye-bye, get the fuck out of here, okay? I told you to be gone, right? I didn't say that, all right? I just kind of laughed. And you know what? The whole dynamics of how whites conducting themselves, I mean, not trying to get over, but you know what? They could actually hold their head up, okay? And you didn't have to fucking look down, okay? Like they're pussies. And, yeah, it was, not every white boy was like that, but too many, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's like this, the Home Depot. Yeah, I just told you, okay? How about the 4 pounds and 3 ounces story?
All right.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. And I learned that it makes a difference. This was the diving board area, and I was one of the guards, and they weren't allowed to, there was a 3-meter board. And if you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there. And Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did, and back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off, and he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse. the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where all the pool filter is. You know the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, you walk out with that chain. And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, if you don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car. And they had, in those days, you used to remember the straight razor. You'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in a rain barrel, get them rusty. And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, I said, when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that. I apologize, but I didn't know that apology was going to work. He said, you apologize to me? I said, I apologize for that, not for throwing you out, but I apologize for what I said. He said, okay, close the straight razor, and my heart began to beat again.
Okay, there you have it. The Corn Pop Saga.
That is, yeah, it's the same story. It's the exact same story.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought when I heard this. Like, obviously, Dan Quinn has, like, more flourish than Joe Biden, I would say. Like, probably a better performer. But the thematic similarity of, you know, wait till you see what this white boy does.
Right.
Incredible.
Yeah, but his story doesn't have pomade, rusty straight razors, a guy named Corn Pop.
A guy named Mouse.
I am a little bit like, I understand that Joe Biden is old, but is he lying and actually much older? Like pomade, Esther Williams, like how old is Joe Biden? And I'm trying to do the math, and it seems like his references would have even been dated then.
Yeah,
he came up to me, pointed the knife at my eye, and said, I'm going to make you like Lachine Andalous.
I mean, that all sounded very early 50s, like Blackboard Jungle.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would have been old enough to have even been a lifeguard at that point, if his given age is accurate.
My favorite detail of the story is when he just says, you remember how you take the straight razors and bang them on the curb and leave them in the rain barrel overnight so they get rusty? Like, yeah, you remember that?
I do remember that.
Everybody remembers taking the factory owner's daughter for a long walk, and you dip an apple in the local barrel of molasses. Like, what, man? I mean, so like, this Biden story has been really funny to me because the response to it by like, you know, serious political media is like, oh, actually, the Corn Pop was a real guy, and people in Wilmington say this happened. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not. The funny thing isn't really that I thought he was lying. It's that, like, why would you tell this story?
I also think that there's a difference between this and, like, the Cory Booker T-Bone story, which is just, like, pulled out of
pure fabulation.
Yeah, just bullshit.
It's that, like, I 100% believe that some version of this happened, but if we were to make kind of a Rashomon of the event and get maybe like onlookers telling of the story where he screamed at a guy and called him by a woman's name for not wearing a swim cap because of pomade. Like, I think maybe the story would seem a little bit different.
I do like, though, that it does prove once and for all just how senile Joe Biden is, because there is nothing that signals rapid, late-stage cognitive decline like the fact that Joe Biden cannot remember the name of the president he served under for 8 years, but he remembers Corn Pop. That's a dying brain. That's what a dying brain does. It goes backward. That's
gonna be his rosebud.
Yeah, he remembers Corn Pop more than any conversation he ever had with Obama in 8 years.
More than his children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we should clarify for those of you who don't know, for those of our listeners who were born in like 2010, And the first audio we played was Dan Quinn, who is a insane man from YouTube.
Right.
I've been watching for 10 years.
A legendary figure.
Known for his tall tales and verbal tics.
Right.
And we thought he sounded a lot like Vice President Joe Biden there.
Yeah,
You be the
who
judge.
is recounting his most fond memory of screaming at a black man from a very high chair.
You want to return to Joe Biden for a second and the corn pop saga, because this is a story that was covered by the Washington Post in July of this year in a very fawning profile of Biden titled "What a Lifeguarding Job on the Black Side of Wilmington Taught Joe Biden About Race." And this I think is the first appearance of the corn pop saga that I guess he's leaning on now. But it just begins here. It says, "The furor about Joe Biden's race politics started as soon as he decided to run for office. As a candidate for the Newcastle County Council in 1970, he made expanding public housing central to his campaign. Angry white residents worried that poor black families would become their neighbors gave Biden a derisive nickname. The first time the phone rang and someone said, 'You lover, you want them living next to you?' I was shocked," Biden told the Wilmington News Journal at the time. On the black side of Wilmington, residents weren't surprised. They had been using that provocative phrase to describe Biden for years, but as a term of affection. "Joe was one of us," recalled Richard Smith, 71, a black resident whom everyone here knows as Mouse. "We helped make him who he was." As Biden makes his third president run for presidency, he is once again trying to navigate the tricky terrain of race. His Democratic opponents have accused him of being...
It's a very tricky race. It's very confusing. It's full of trickery.
His Democratic opponents have accused him of being on the wrong side of busing and crime legislation, as well as being overly accommodating to segregationist senators.
He was.
His effort to personally wrangle with matters of race began even before his controversial turn on the city council, on the county council, back when he was a 19-year-old teenager trying to figure out what he could do to bridge the racial divide. His solution was to become a lifeguard at a predominantly African-American pool in Wilmington.
Scream at black people from his tall chair.
That's where he met Mouse and others with nicknames such as Corn Pop, the Puerto Rican, and Marty. Marty's not a nickname. That's just a name. That's just a short
name. Puerto Rican, also not a nickname.
Well, no, it's actually funny. They go down the story.
That's an adjective.
You find out that the Puerto Rican actually was a nickname, and everyone called him the Puerto Rican because he was light skinned.
Okay.
So these Corn Pop, the Puerto Rican, and Marty are friends who would become friends who would shape his life and provide his formative experience in understanding Black America. "I was not out marching. I was not down in Selma or anywhere else," Biden once said. "I was a suburbanite kid who got exposure to Black America in my own city." Smith can still visualize the first time he saw Biden, a skinny 19-year-old with big sunglasses and brown hair, sporting a big smile and a whistle around his neck, trying to discipline teenagers like Smith who were bouncing on the diving boards. The pool back then had become overrun by neighborhood gangs, like the 13th Street Stompers, the Hornets, and the Romans.
This is
from
the
Gangs
most
of New
West
York
Side
era.
Story. They were snapping and doing step ball changes on the diving board.
Speaking of these gangs, they said they loved pranking Biden. The cost to enter the pool...
they're one of those really dangerous gangs that do pranks.
The cost to enter the pool was 10 cents, but a tiny smack-talking teenager known as Corn Pop wanted to try a way to get his friends in free.
By the way, he did not mention that this was a teenager. He was screaming at a teenager.
I mean, he was...
To be fair, he was also like a teenager at the time.
Yeah, it's just good old teenager on teenager yelling.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying that there's some necessarily old man yelling at teenager, but it wasn't like this person was like somebody with recourse, somebody with a job, and it's like, how dare you? I'm an adult.
So it says, Corn Pop wanted to try a way to get his friends in for free, distract the white lifeguard. Corn Pop got Biden's attention by talking about his mother, Smith recalled. Biden blew his whistle and demanded Corn Pop show him some respect. Meanwhile, Corn Pop's friends jumped the fence, hopped into the water, and laughed over their declared victory. They were testing him, recalled Maurice Pritchett, known as Marty, who served as a lifeguard on the shift with Biden. He had to earn their respect.
That isn't testing someone. That's completely insane. This is like the most cop mentality where it's like, oh, they're testing me and I'm going to get through this and then I'll earn their respect. It's like, no, they're trying to get into the pool for free. That it has nothing to do with you. You're an obstacle to swimming in the swimming pool.
Eventually, Pritchett said, he earned their respect by continuing to show up. He learned some witty cut-downs to master the art of playing the dozens, discovering that some good yo mama jokes could be more disarming than blowing a whistle. I would really, really like someone to ask Joe Biden if he can remember any of the yo mama jokes that he laid out to, do the dozens with the
classic format.
The black kids and earn their respect by just doing some.
I was at the first Player Haters International Convention. I was there before Chappelle. You can ask him.
So soon he was playing basketball with the Romans when his shift ended, and others
meaning the actual Roman Empire. he was hooping in the Colosseum.
He's actually 700 years old at least.
He's like,
I'm a Highlander. I'm the strongest one. Okay.
I had to earn their.
My great friend Ramirez. He was a Spaniard who was Egyptian. Things were more complicated back then. Okay. I had my wife. Most beautiful girl I had ever seen in my life, okay? And believe me, girls back then in the Scottish Highlands, they weren't too keen on washing. This one was. I'll tell you, this one was. And I had to watch her die of old age. And that was tragic. And that's the reason I'm out here. I want the quickening to happen. I want to live like a mortal, okay? And I want to quicken your kids learning inside these schools, okay? I am going to fight the Kurgan. I'm going to fight the Kurgan for you. A lot of people say, Joe, don't fight the Kurgan. He's an ancient evil. He's stronger than you. No, that's a bunch of crap. All due respect, I'm going to beat the Kurgan, okay? And I will die a mortal man. I will merge with everything, okay?
Kurgan
oh my God! The Highlander did also have a deceased wife, but am I remembering correctly? Didn't the Kurgan kill her, or did she die of old age?
I think he.
No, she died of old age.
Oh, yeah?
Kurgan assaulted her.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you, Felix.
You know what?
Yo, respect to the god Clancy Brown, though. That's what's up.
Oh my God, that voice.
Clancy
That
Brown.
voice.
Oh man, he's the best. Drill instructor Zim.
Yep.
Come on. Yeah, no, it's just that. He ended up. He had to earn the respect of the Romans by playing with
Such a
them and
fantasy.
learning how to do the Tetsudo formation in the phalanx.
This is such a fantasy. I feel like when Dangerous Minds came out, like Biden fantasized about wearing the cornrows and sitting the wrong way on the chair across from Coolio in the video. It's like this is a long-standing kind of weird liberal fantasy where it's like, look, I'm going to learn to get along with black people by telling them how they're living their lives wrong. I'm going to dom them into friendship. It's like this really weird bully mentality.
It's similar to how he got his passion for rail transport from watching Train Arrives at Station. Motherfucker's old, is what I'm saying.
He's so old.
So it says, once he was out with us, Smith said, he never wanted to leave. You just have to imagine it at the time, Pritchett recalled. White people just weren't listening to anything we had to say. And Biden, you could see it in his eyes. He wanted to know about us. As the kids in the neighborhood became more comfortable with Biden, they shared stories about being black in America. A fellow lifeguard told him he didn't want to stop for gas on a trip to North Carolina because of what dangers might lurk for a black man at a station. They asked whether white girls were any different from black girls. They told him about the indignity of being forced to sit in the balcony of a movie theater. Biden took a special liking to Smith, a reform school student who was around 6 years his junior. Smith had a temper and a stutter and found it difficult to control either. But Biden had a solution. I used to get bullied for having a stutter, he recalled Biden telling him. You still are, buddy. Look into the mirror and practice talking. That's how I got rid of mine. Going on here, it says, it talks about the riots that happened in Wilmington after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And it says, months after the rioting quelled, the officers were still patrolling the black neighborhoods with guns. Residents were forced to adhere to curfew. For Biden, it was yet another example of the unfair treatment of black residents that he learned about at the pool. And unlike the protests in the South, this situation was happening right in front of him. Biden has at times faced criticism for exaggerating his involvement in the civil rights movement. During his first presidential run, he told voters that he was one of those guys that sat in and marched and all that stuff. Facing pointed questions about those statements a few months later, he then pulled back. During the riots, he had chosen a different way to get involved. Fresh out of Syracuse University College of Law, Biden tried to help by working as a public defender. He quit after about a year. The part-time job wasn't very lucrative, and according to at least one of his old clients, Biden wasn't very successful. Nice guy, but he couldn't convince a judge, recalled Errol Mad Dog Larkin, 73, in a phone interview with the Washington Post. Larkin ended up serving 5 years on a robbery conviction. The jail had a lot of people who had him as their lawyer. Then after being a public defender, he tried to become a politician, and he went to Mouse for some advice about how to reach out to the black community. So it says here, Mouse, you working? Biden asked Smith one day. Biden wanted to campaign in the projects and asked Smith to be his bodyguard. Smith saw his role, though, as more of an ambassador. He coached Biden on how to make a good impression. If you sit on a couch and a spring digs into your butt, don't move, Smith said, he told him. If a roach climbs on your shirt sleeves, keep talking. If a mouse comes over your feet,
absolutely insane.
Don't move.
That is absolutely insane. Poor people don't sit around with roaches crawling all over them and just not respond. That is the most insane fucking thing I have ever heard. I have a feeling that any support that Joe Biden ever got from black voters had to do with the fact that, like, dude, this guy was just covered in rats and roaches. He was a stone cold killer. I want him fighting for me.
Yeah. If a large spider crawls across your face while you're talking, don't register any reaction. Just keep talking.
That is fucking insane.
If it crawls in your mouth, just hold your mouth open so that it can just sit there and just be silent. People will respect you.
I will say, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Biden, particularly locally, has black supporters. And I think Joe Biden has black friends. I think Joe Biden really doesn't offend people when he talks to them in person. He's just like a political moron and has bad politics. So this idea that absolutely everything is a lie isn't even that useful. There are plenty of people who have black friends who are morons. It doesn't make you smart to have a few black friends.
I just think what we're seeing with Biden and this stuff, I think it's just I don't know, a general or generational gap that people over the age of 50 just relate and find all of this stuff very charming. And if you're under 40, it makes absolutely no sense to you, or it just seems bizarre and
yeah. I mean, it's multiple generational gaps.
Yeah.
Too. People in their 70s, yeah, they like Joe Biden. He was probably literally way less racist than every other white person that they were around.
Last bit of advice that Mouse gives him is if you get offered Kool-Aid in an old mayonnaise jar, drink it. Which is not that weird. A lot of people use jars for glasses, but it would be odd if there was old mayonnaise still in the jar, though. That would be pretty gross. I wouldn't drink that.
Nah, you have to serve Kool-Aid similar to the philosophy you use with a cast iron skillet.
You have to season the mayonnaise jar.
Yeah.
They get passed down.
Exactly.
In the story, though, Biden showed a moderation that his opponents and some of his supporters did not expect after he campaigned on a civil rights agenda. Biden told the reporter he would not be a, quote, crusading rabbit who would make excuses for African Americans because of systemic racism. He used two hypothetical examples to make his case. I have some friends on the far left, and they can justify to me the murder of a white deaf mute for a nickel by 5 colored guys, he told the Wilmington News Journal in 1970.
I like every word in that sentence. A white deaf mute for a nickel by coloreds. That's great.
So his far left-wing friends would say of this, deaf mute murderer, they would say the black men had been oppressed and so on. but they can't justify some Alabama farmers tar and feathering an old colored woman. I suspect the ACLU would leap to defend the 5 black guys, but no one would go down to defend the rednecks. They are both products of an environment. The truth is somewhere between the two poles. He spent more than 30 years in the Senate trying to find the in-between.
Just like Dave Matthews.
So he goes on here to talk about busing, and he says, the concept of busing is a rejection of the whole movement of black pride, Biden said in a 1975 NPR interview recently unearthed by the Washington Examiner. A rejection of the entire black awareness concept that black is beautiful and black culture should be studied, and the cultural awareness of the importance of their own identity, their own individuality. And I think that's a healthy, solid proposal.
I will absolutely say that he is acting in accordance with every sort of liberal think tank that has existed since the Ford Foundation. There's a really good book called Top Down, about how the Ford Foundation did this amazing bait and switch when people were like, oh, well, black people, particularly urban black people, are incredibly deprived. What if we told them that actually you have community control? It's not that we're not giving you the same resources as everyone else. It's that you're in charge of your own thing. And they sold that entire bullshit proposition to tons of sort of aspiring PMC, black self-appointed leadership class, and it resulted in increased segregation. What he's talking about is bullshit, but it is literally the bullshit that has carried on since sort of Ford Foundation liberalism said that oh no, we don't need to integrate, they can do their own thing.
What was where did the Ford Foundation come from? What was their deal?
Henry Ford.
Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Fords, those guys, the car people.
They were, I think until.
But how did they become
Bezos.
But Henry Ford was a fascist and a fanatical right winger. How did they become the PMC liberal touchy feely think tank?
We should, by the way, I can talk to you all day about that. We should do a whole episode on the Ford Foundation.
Okay.
Because they are essentially the NGOs, the post kind of 1900s NGOs have done at least as much to influence the trajectory of this country as any one wing of government. It's been entirely massive. I mean, they did everything from sort of establishing, things like women's studies and African American studies departments in universities, so long as they could stack the deck with anti-communists.
Deep dive into the Ford Foundation, TK.
Yeah. Anyway, what he's talking about is 100% in line with liberalism.
It's not just he's spitting it out of his brain. He's speaking from a certain.
He can't remember who he's referencing, but he's definitely referencing a party line of kind of bourgeois liberal reformers.
Finishing up the Joe Biden article, it says here, he pulled his car in front of an old friend's house and began to gingerly walk up the stairs. He rang the bell and Dennis Williams, 66, came to the door. Back in the pool days, Williams often got into fights after being made fun of because of his light complexion. They called him the Puerto Rican. Mouse, how you doing? Williams said. I'm just thinking about Joe, Smith said. Oh man, you remember that day Joe kicked me out of the pool? That led to the familiar swapping of old stories of pranking Joe, being disciplined by Joe, of fights and gangs and all that teenage bravado. The guy they called Corn Pop grew up to be a security guard and recently died. Pritchett, who shared the lifeguard shift with Biden, became a state principal of the year. Smith became a union president and is a former head of the state NAACP. Williams became a detective, a Wilmington mayor, and a state representative.
Animal house, house, animal house.
Maybe in today's climate, Biden's typical folksy anecdotes about life at the pool might not be enough to persuade voters. After the debate, Smith sent texts to everyone he knew on Biden's campaign. The candidate needed to better speak to the language on race, he told them. Please tell Joe to read The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois, or Where Do We Go From Here by Martin Luther King, said one text that Smith read to William. Do not let my friend go out there unprepared, read another. Don't worry, he'll be fine, Williams assured. It will all blow over.
He will not be fine.
He and Kamala will hug it out. We have to protect him, Smith said, because that's what we do. You know he was the best man at my wedding? Do you know he helped me with my stutter? Do you know? Do you know?
Do you see? Here I am with Corn Pop at the pool. Do you see? Me and Corn Pop changing. Do you see? Corn Pop changed. Do you see?
That really brought me down. That really depressed me, that end, because it's like, I feel like Joe Biden is I've never really considered this angle. Someone who is politically corrupt, but in their lives has pre-senility, of course, maybe even post-senility, has an incredible charm and affect on people. And someone has to not only see them go out there and just be a complete corrupt shit as a politician, but as a person feels like they know their heart. And then after decades of doing that, after 3 failed presidential campaigns, it's finally supposed to be his time. And he just goes out there and everyone sees the rotten side of his heart. And everyone sees his decaying, rotting shit brain. Someone like Rahm Emanuel, I don't think there are any stories of people who've been charmed by him or have had real human moments with them, because
Rahm Emanuel has no friends. Joe Biden 100% has actual authentic friendships.
And this is sort of sad for literally everyone, because I do believe there's a part of Joe Biden's soul that's good. I really do. You can't deny his real connection with people that he had at one time in his life, and I think you can deny that for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's why he's a successful politician. People always talk about, the way he talks to people on the campaign trail and does the Bill Clinton thing of, feeling their pain and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not his wit, intelligence, or articulate nature.
Yeah.
He does kind of radiate a human thing. And what I've said before is look, if Joe Biden were my next door neighbor, I bet he would throw good barbecues and shovel my walk or whatever. He just shouldn't be in charge of absolutely anything.
But
Absolutely not.
That sense that he'd be a good neighbor and would have a good 4th of July party and shovel your walk, I really think for a large chunk of the electorate, that's what they're looking for in a politician.
That's all they can hope for.
Yeah.
No, it's the ultimate in making you feel normal again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Look, this person is human. This person is recognizably human to me. He's more recognizably human than Hillary Clinton.
Certainly.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, he's one of the most recognizably human people on that stage, which is what makes his lifetime of fucking dog shit policies so tragic.
Honestly, his senility is humanizing.
Yeah, we know that he's not doing adrenochrome sacrifices to retain his youth. We know that for sure.
Let's kick things off right now talking a little Crazy Joe's Folly. And this is Crazy Joe's Folly, direct from the mind of Felix Biederman.
Just imagine Dixieland Jazz playing.
Let's just play this clip from a tense exchange in New Hampton, Iowa.
It's not really tense. Joe absolutely owns this guy.
I got a question I want you to answer. We all know Trump.
Well, this old fuck talks forever. Oh my God.
Yeah, because he's a gifted kid. That's why he's a Warren supporter. Warren is ID politics for gifted kids.
But you, on the other hand, sent your son get a job and work for a gas company.
This guy's older than Biden.
Yeah, he's somehow older and more checked out than Biden.
Yeah.
In order to get access to the public.
Shouldn't you be supporting Jim Webb, man? Why are you a Warren supporter?
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that? No one has proved that?
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape line, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take the 19 steps. Number two, no one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion And no one has ever said it. Not
I
one.
didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
This is fucking alpha.
You're on MSNBC.
You don't hear that in MSNBC. You did not hear that at all. What you heard? Look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do, but look, Fat, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
You don't have any more backbone than Trump does.
Any other questions?
Cut his mic off. Okay, so as you'll see in that clip, just some pathetic worm tries to call out Joe on being
And Hunter.
Joe
Absolute
and Hunter.
beta boy, just a soy cuck.
Yeah,
Beta boy outclassed by alpha male is what that clip should be called.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like this clip, it's hilarious when Joe Biden challenges him to do once again challenges another elderly man to do push-ups with him, and then also says literally he says, "Look, Jack," and then later he screws up and says, "Look, fat."
Yeah.
And
He
the
also
guy
can't hear it over the overwhelming din of the audience approving. He also challenged to do an IQ test.
Joe Biden would smash this guy in an IQ test because, okay, what you're seeing there, these Warren supporters are keyboard warriors. They can't stand up to anyone unless they're going, all right, y'all, thread. This guy, I don't really see his face, but going by his voice, I'm going to assume he's 137 years old. He's on Twitter, like his Avi is like Rihanna or some shit, and he's like, every day, like thread. He's very confident on there. But in the real world, where alphas like Joe Biden triumph and keep pools safe, he just falls apart.
I mean, I think this clip does kind of express why Biden is, by polls the most popular candidate. I mean, this is what people.
He's got alpha strength.
I think look for is that it's not so much that he makes sense or his record is good at all. It's just they want another old guy to stand up to the battle.
Exactly, because they have decided that if Trump won, it's because that's what people want. So we need a Democrat version of Trump who could be just as loud and old and erratic. And volatile as him,
and also just call someone shut up, fatty.
Yeah.
Shut up, fatty.
Yeah, exactly.
We let you talk.
Yeah,
shut up, dum dum.
They want somebody who could like just steamroll this dude with just alpha, insane old man energy, and nobody else has that except, of course, for Bernie, which is why Bernie is the second choice of many Biden supporters, and why a lot of them will fall to him when Bernie starts winning the early primary.
I mean, I feel Felix, you've assumed that this cardigan wearing sop is a Warren supporter, which is not too far of a stretch. But again, if he wasn't a beta, he would have taken Joe Biden up immediately on the push-up competition and made him do it
exactly
in front of everyone in those cameras.
Fuck it, let's bust out an IQ test. Let's go on Quora and do contests.
So I mean, I think though with Biden though, I think Biden probably could bust out some good push-ups. He does. He still looks pretty spry.
Yeah, Jack Palance at the Oscar style.
I mean, yeah, when his eye isn't shooting blood,
his eye isn't blood red.
He looks pretty good.
That's just cosmetic.
Here though, if you're looking to catch Crazy Joe's folly out, get him to draw a clock on a piece of paper and fill in, just get him to draw 6:30 on a clock.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah. Just recite the months of the year backwards. Give that one a try, Joe.
I love it when people ask him okay, what is your experience? What are you going to put into practice with your experience? And he's just like, you got 100 people and they're giving you 99 directions, and you got 80 people going left, 120 going right. And I'm going up. I'm going up. And for my experiment of what I've done, I'm the only guy who's going to go on there in reference to what we have in the Oval Office right now and in expedience to going forward, man.
Right
and
on,
it's
brother.
That's whatever you just said, sir.
So that was that's a clip of Biden that I think we can take credit for, Felix specifically.
Yeah, another thing we conjured into existence.
just chalk that up. Update the Lathe of Heaven spreadsheet for what we've done so far. Let's keep it happening now.
Can I just add something at the end of this Biden segment? I have to say, at the beginning of this season, I was a little wary of Biden's prominence because it's for the show. Because I was like, he's been around for a while. He's kind of boring. He doesn't have that many eccentricities to him. He's like straight over home plate. What are we going to really do with him on the show? I have just been delighted with the rich font of material that Biden
corn
has.
Pop.
Yes,
come on, man.
The silken hairy legs.
Come on, man.
Yes.
Yeah, come on, man. You can't take Jack Frost and take him to Home Depot. What, dude?
Threatening to beat up Donald Trump.
If you had
multiple times.
Yeah, if you had in like January 1st, 2019 said, give me a Joe Biden impression, I'd be like, I don't know. He's got nothing. He's got nothing there. At this point, it is so good
let's not
and
forget
so
the
full.
extra bonus. The sick part of me that really thought that Trump being the winner would made the most sense for where the country was. Like, he was a reflection of us more than this Hillary's absolute fake, repressed milieu. I honestly feel like we as a country have come to the point where we have subconsciously demanding and deserve a Biden-Trump debate.
Yes.
Just two absolutely checked out maniacs competing to be the president of the most powerful country in the world. And they're just doing dueling Grandpa Simpson monologues to a nation of rapt attention where half the people watching think one of the jabbering old demented men sounds like a genius and the other one thinking the other one does.
Yeah. And no vice president debate, by the way, because no one wants to see it. No one wants to see,
nobody wants to see Pence?
Like Pence versus Stacey Abrams or whatever. That's,
or Kamala.
Crap. They want to see the Sons debate.
Yes. Replace the VP debate with a Sons debate.
Eric and Don can go, they can be one team.
They can tag up.
Yeah, 2-on-1.
Hunter don't care. He's still got an arm behind his back against those two.
Destroy them. He would make them cry.
Oh, yeah. No, they would be weeping by the end of it.
Because they couldn't last a minute in Hunter's world. Legitimately.
Do you think it's like, you triggered? You triggered?
No,
I've sucked dick for crack, dude. You think you have what it takes to trigger me?
Eric and Don can trade off. They will each enter at full health, but right before Hunter gets on stage, he just fires up a rock, and you can just tell that his health bar just goes into a different color. So you just have to deplete all of that before you can even do hit damage on him.
Yeah. He's literally, his every stat, 99999. He's think about Hunter's up there, Eric and Don are like, we go hunting. Do guns trigger you? And he's like, no, I literally got one put in my mouth, and then I kept buying crack. What's up, pussy?
It's so true.
It's true. It's literally
God,
true.
this is so true.
Eric and Don, you can't even ask a girl out anymore without filling out a legal form because of this. And he's just I have 12 illegitimate kids, dog.
I stay fucking.
Dude, I have
not had that problem, dude. That might be on you, dude. Maybe you can't fucking talk to a girl.
I'm engaged to 2 of the makeup girls from this channel right now.
I have 6 different women's names tattooed on my body.
Yeah,
I have converted to 3 religions in the past 2 months.
I have the Hebrew and Chinese characteristics for strength tattooed on my back.
The Sons debate would be the biggest, that would change the country, because I feel like America, there's a part of America that thinks it's Trump, where it's just subconsciously I'm a piece of shit, but I say what I mean.
Right.
But there's also a part of America that's Hunter, where it's just we don't have any real moral education anymore. No one told, a lot of people just don't know what it means to be a good person, but they want to be.
That is, you said that the other week, and I was thinking about how fucking true that is with Hunter. It's he has to drive towards being a good person, but he's never seen an example of it because he's grown up amongst just disgusting DC worms.
Yeah.
The people with no character or morals, growing up a fucking mob kid or something.
Yeah.
But he wants to be good. He's like Michael Corleone. They keep pulling him back in.
Eric and Don, Don Jr. got smacked in the face by his dad for not wearing a suit to a Yankee game.
Yeah.
Hunter got kicked out of the Navy for doing blow.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, Trump is a perfect avatar of American id.
Yeah.
So is Hunter though, but it could be the good, it could be a Danny McBride.
Yeah,
universe.
it's the people. It's Trump nihilistic. The Trump ethos is just nihilistically embracing excess out of a positive desire to see cruelty done. With Hunter, it's a coping mechanism to deal with the yawning emptiness he feels, the lack of a sense of purpose, and that because he doesn't know what that looks like, so he fills it with drugs and sex.
It's like I mean,
you could do worse.
You meet like you,
but it's like it's out of need. Like Trump does it. Like Trump only harasses women and rapes and sex with them because he thinks that's what you're supposed to do, and because it's a power show. Like he has no actual desires for anything. It's just pure cruelty.
Yeah, Hunter, like you meet like a lot of Americans who like they're not like their lives aren't as dramatic as Hunter, but it's like the same idea. They're just bouncing from thing to thing. They're like. One week they're like, yeah, I'm a Buddhist now. Another week they just bounce from belief system to way
Wanting
of life.
to join the military is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Like that's searching.
You meet people who like into their 30s
Pat
are just going
Tillman.
they're going from phase to phase to phase. But it's like you can tell there's like an actually very good intent in there, but they just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know how to find any purpose. They don't know how to actually like really help anyone in a lasting way. But it's like it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because I think there are like millions of people like that in the country, and it's an unstated phenomenon in a directionless country.
I honestly feel like you can read between the lines in a lot of the Hunter profiles, and this might just be me, getting too literary with it, but I honestly feel like his whole descent to the bottom, his life of just nihilistic excess, it really got triggered by when he started to have to work in Washington.
Yeah.
Like, this is my job. Like he has quotes where he's like, yeah, I'm here because of my dad, but I got to provide for my family. And he's very explicit about saying, I know that all of these jobs are just influence peddling. I know they don't do anything good for anyone. I know that I'm not doing good. Like a lot of these people in DC, especially the kids, convince themselves that they're actually positively contributing to society.
Ivanka thinks she's helping women.
Yes, she does. She thinks she's saving women. Fucking Wyatt Koch thinks that he's bringing, a new design style to the boardroom and the discotheque. And he thinks that that's valuable. Hunter is purely disillusioned. Like, this is a fraud, but it's the only thing I know. I don't have talents anywhere else. I don't have the discipline to pursue something else. So fuck it.
Yeah. And it is like, I know, like he doesn't have the worst plight in America. He's been very fortunate in life. But it is like
insulated from the real cost.
Yeah, no,
of a lot of his.
He's been insulated by consequences far more than literally pretty much any other American who would go through.
Everyone should be insulated from those consequences.
And it is I do think you can extrapolate it to a larger phenomenon of American directionlessness and a lack of a for lack of a better term, moral education and
examples.
People live their entire lives just not knowing how to glean any meaning from what they do, but just trying their hardest. It's fucking heartbreaking. If you're listening, at least fucking 3 people like this.